Hey everyone, today I wanted to talk about changing your front brake pads. I noticed that my videos, I haven't talked about this yet, and I was doing some servicing, doing a tire rotation, and I realized I haven't talked about the front brake pads, and I'm going to be servicing mine today, but I'm going to show you how to replace them as well. I'm not going to be changing the rotors, but it's pretty simple. All you would do is remove this screw here. Once you get your brake caliper off, you're going to get the bracket off with the two bolts that are right here. Just like any other brake job, it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing different with this vehicle, and then you just change that out and replace it. But mine are still good, my pads are still good, but the car has 70,000 miles on it, highway miles, and I have never changed them before. So I'm going to take them off and I'm going to inspect them, and I'm going to show you guys how to replace your brake pads without replacing your rotor. So first thing you're going to do is obviously get the tire off. You're going to jack up the vehicle, make sure that's properly supported. You're gonna have two 10mm bolts. It's gonna be one right here and one down here. Now at first, when you're first spinning them, you're gonna notice that's gonna kind of move around a little bit, but now sometimes when you're trying to break these loose, they may just break loose, and this right here, your slide pin, may not shift on you. But if it does, it'll be all right. You just keep turning it until you see that it pushes up against the caliper right there, and then it'll stop, and then you can turn this right here. You can turn the bolt off. So that's the first one, and then the second one's going to be right down here. Okay, once you have those two, set them aside, and we're just going to gently slide this off, and then we're just going to set it right on top of it, just like that. So now you have your brake pads right here. These little clips, you just pinch them right here, pinch them on the ends, and then they're just going to slide out. And you just be careful because they're going to expand. Not clips, more springs. Orientation of which one is where doesn't really matter, but you just set them aside like that. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. You're going to pinch it, slide it out, and then just set it aside. And then those are going to go inside these two little holes right here. There's one right here and one right here. So earlier in the video I talked about how I'm not replacing the pads. I'm going to be servicing mine, and that's because they still have a lot of meat on them and they're still really good. So there's no need to replace them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean them up. I'm going to sand them down a little bit, make sure that the rotor is okay. There's no pitting, no grooves, so I'm not going to turn them and I'm not going to replace them. They're still good. If you run into an event where you get down to the metal, or like on this side where the sensor is, where these little metal sensors are, the screechers I call them, but if that starts digging into the rotor, then you need to turn it or you need to replace it. So, but as you can see, I'm still far away from that right there, so no need to worry about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand these down, these little parts here on the brake hardware. I'm going to clean them up and then lube them up. And then I'm also going to lube up these ends here, wherever the brake pad is actually moving. So in this case, if you're replacing your brake pads, what you would do is the same thing. You would lube these up, this area here. You would be replacing your brake hardware. If your hardware is still good, it doesn't need to be replaced as long as it's still okay. Like this one is really smooth right here. There's nothing that would prevent it from sliding back and forth, so these are still good. So I'm not going to do anything with those, but I am going to sand them down just a little bit, just to get out any imperfections. But yeah, if you're replacing your brake pads, you would just pop them back on like that. You'd get your springs, and you would just place it right in there. Place the first hole like that, and then you just squeeze it in, place it in the second one there, and you place your caliper back on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grease up these points, any point that has movement, contact, just like that. Don't need to go crazy with it, just a little bit. And then I'm also gonna grease up these points here, just like this. Just place a little bit there. Just like that, and I'm gonna do the rest for the other three. So now I got those greased up. Got the brake pads. Another thing that we can service is gonna be your caliper slide pins. What I like to do is just get your nail right up under the boot. Try not to damage it, because you would be replacing it if you damaged it. But you're just gonna pull it out and just try to pop it off that groove there, just like that. And then just pull that out. So now if yours were dry, this would be causing some brake problems. These ones are not dry, and they're still in really good condition, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more grease. Another good practice to do would be to actually wipe this off, clean it, and then just put all new grease. But the grease on here was actually still really good, so not a big deal. But then you're just going to slide that back in, just like that. And then now on the back side of the boot, you're just going to press it over the lip. You don't want to use any tools on this, because if you rip this boot, you will be replacing it. Just like that. And then just make sure that when you pull it out, it sucks itself back in, just like that. And that is a good working caliper pin right there. See, so they're good, they're working, but I'm just going to service them. Pull that off. The bottom one is going to have the rubber boot. If you're ever servicing your brakes and you forget which one, see, like this one doesn't really have a lot of grease, so I'm just going to add a good amount there. Just like that. And then slide that back in. And make sure that that boot goes right back over. And then you're going to check it. Pull it out, make sure that it goes back in. Just like that. Brake pads back on. I like to just start on one side, so I'm going to put the bottom in. Make sure that it goes inside the groove. And then place the top in there. Same thing with the bottom. Place it in like that, and then the top, you just line it up and just slide it in just like that. Now with the springs, you got these two holes here, the one right here, one right here. Just gonna place it inside the holes and just make sure that they're seated. Down here at the bottom, same thing. Oops, it's kind of hard to do it one-handed here. So once you have both of your springs in, you can go ahead and bring your caliper back over. Now if you're replacing your brake pads, then you're going to have more meat on the pad. You're going to have to press in your caliper. You're going to need one of the retractor tools. But the brake pads are still the same level. We're not replacing them. So I might need two hands for this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up holding in the brake pads here. I'm going to press them in together and then slide this back over. Okay, just like that. Once you have that over, just make sure that that's going to slide back on, just like that. And then you're just going to reinstall your bolts. And you got to make sure that the flat end of this here is going to be lined up with that. So you see how it's kind of turning now? I'm doing that. And that's going to cause you some problems there. There we go, just like that. Do the same thing with the bottom. Okay, once those are on there, okay. And once that's tightened up, you're all done. Changing the brake pads is as easy as that. Everything's lubed up here, and these are tightened, and that's it. Like I said, if you're replacing the rotor, then you would take that a step further and you would take the caliper off, just like everything that we just did, the brake pads, but then you would have to take these two bolts off, the one up here and one down here. Once this bracket comes off, then you could slide the brake rotor off. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope that helped you out. Have a good day.